For 58 years, the official record said the USGA banned croquet-style putting to protect the traditions of golf. That's the story they tell. It isn't what happened. The truth is the men who wrote that rule weren't protecting a tradition. They were protecting each other. Here's what the records were rewritten to hide. Sam Snead won more PGA Tour events than almost anyone alive. By the early 1960s, his hands betrayed him. The putter would freeze over the ball, then jerk without warning. Golfers call it the yips. Doctors call it focal dystonia. Snead called it the end of his career until he found a way around it. He straddled the line, faced the hole, and stroked the ball like a croquet mallet between his legs. The tremor vanished. His scores didn't. By 1966, Snead was competitive again. He wasn't the only one. A handful of aging pros adopted the same stance, and suddenly men in their 50s were outputting golfers half their age. Tour officials noticed. Sponsors noticed. In 1968, the USGA and the R&A passed a new rule. No player could stand astride the line of the putt or with a foot touching its extension ever again. The announcement called it a matter of preserving the traditional character of the stroke. No further explanation was offered. None was required. Snead switched to a side saddle stance, standing beside the ball instead of over it, and kept his career alive by inches. But the question nobody asked out loud was simple. Why did the most powerful rule-making body in golf move that fast, over a stance nobody had ever needed a rule for in over 100 years of the sport? The obvious answer is tradition. Golf loves the word. But golf had already tolerated 100 years of strange putting stances before 1968. Left-handed cross-hand grips, claw grips, mallets shaped like croquet heads, without a single rule change. Tradition wasn't threatened by a stance. Tradition was threatened by what the stance revealed. A straddled putt isn't just a different motion. It removes the wrist entirely from the stroke. It replaces a skill the tour had spent decades selling as unteachable, the nerve, the touch, the years of practice, with something closer to a mechanical trick. If a 55-year-old man with shaking hands could outputt a tour rookie by literally changing his geometry, then putting wasn't the sacred, unlearnable art the tour marketed it as. It was a design flaw waiting to be exploited. And it had just been exploited in public on television, by a man everyone assumed was finished. That's the crack, but it goes deeper. Committee correspondence and interviews from the period, buried in club archives and rarely quoted since, show the push for the ban didn't come from traditionalists worried about etiquette. It came from tour pros and tournament organizers worried about gate money. Purses were built on the myth of the natural, the idea that greatness at the top of the leaderboard was earned through nerve under pressure, not solved with a mallet swing. Every man with the yips who found relief in the croquet stance was quiet proof that the pressure wasn't unbeatable. It was just poorly engineered. That proof was dangerous because it didn't just threaten a handful of scores. It threatened the entire sales pitch of professional golf, the idea that champions possessed something ordinary players couldn't buy or copy. So the rule wasn't written to protect a stroke. It was written to protect a story, the story that greatness under pressure is rare, when a straddled stance had just shown on camera that it might not be. The cost of that decision never made the highlight reels. For golfers with essential tremor, arthritis, or nerve damage, the croquet stance wasn't a gimmick. It was the only way to keep competing at all. Banning it in 1968 didn't just close a loophole for elite pros chasing comeback wins. It quietly ended competitive careers for amateur and club-level players whose hands simply didn't work the conventional way, players with no television coverage and no one asking why they'd stopped showing up to tournaments. Snead adapted. He had the fame, the sponsors, and the incentive to find another workaround. Most people with shaking hands did not have that luxury. They just stopped playing. Nobody wrote their story down, because the record only remembers who kept winning, not who quietly disappeared from the leaderboard once the loophole closed. So the next time someone tells you golf protects its traditions, ask which tradition and whose. Ask why 100 years of strange stances were tolerated until one of them started working too well for a man who wasn't supposed to still be dangerous. The USGA never released the full committee notes from that 1968 ruling. Nobody outside that room knows exactly whose reputation they were guarding, or how many quiet careers ended the same week Sam Snead's was saved. What else has been ruled illegal, not because it broke the game, but because it worked?